When you hear the name Attila, you probably picture a savage warrior on horseback, with a furious glare and a bloodied sword. They called him the Scourge of God, as if he were a plague sent to punish the civilized world. That's the image that has survived for centuries. Uncultured barbarians, city destroyers, enemies of all that represents order. But what if that's not the whole story? What if the Huns weren't as savage as we've been told? History, when we look closely, is often far more complex than what we were taught in school. It all begins in the vast steppes of Central Asia, a massive, wind-swept, nearly endless land. Long before Attila's name terrified Europe, the Huns lived there. Nomads, warriors, archers, and above all, exceptional horsemen. Life on the steppe was harsh, but the Huns had mastered it. Their culture wasn't about building cities. It was about movement, adaptation, and survival. Over centuries, these tribes expanded westward. Their arrival in Europe during the 4th century CE changed everything. Germanic peoples living on the Roman Empire's borders began migrating, pushed by the advancing Huns. The consequences were enormous. Wars, mass migrations, and the beginning of the fall of the Western Roman Empire. That's when the myth began to take shape. Romans needed to explain what was happening. And the easiest narrative was this: the barbarians are coming to destroy us. It's uncultured people, savages, uncivilized. But if we dig a little deeper, that version doesn't hold up. Priscus of Panium, a Roman ambassador who met Attila in person in 449, left behind a very different account. He was received in an organized court with protocols, banquets, and clear hierarchies. Attila behaved with restraint. While his men ate off golden plates, he used wood. He dressed modestly. He was respected, and he ruled over a vast and diverse empire. Yes, an empire. Because the Hunnic world wasn't just a nomadic army. It was a confederation of peoples: Ostrogoths, Gepids, Alans, Scythians. All under Attila's rule, managing such a group wasn't about brute force alone. It required diplomacy, politics, strategy. Attila had all of that, and he had clear goals. Attila didn't want to destroy the Roman Empire. He wanted to negotiate with it, to exploit it. He demanded huge tributes from the Eastern Roman Empire. He signed treaties. When he attacked, it was calculated, not bloodthirsty. One of the most famous moments was the Battle of the Catalonian Plains in 451. There, he faced a Roman-Visigothic alliance. It was a brutal battle with no clear winner. Many call it a defeat for Attila, but the truth is, his army wasn't destroyed. He withdrew. And the very next year, he invaded Italy. He advanced unopposed until he was near Rome. The emperor fled, and Rome trembled. But Attila didn't take the city. He didn't destroy it. He chose not to. Some say out of religious respect, others due to logistical problems, disease, famine. But here's the fact: he could have razed Rome, and didn't. That doesn't fit the image of a mindless barbarian. After his death in 453, the Hunnic Empire collapsed quickly. Attila had been the glue holding the tribes together. Threats about him, the unity broke. Subject peoples rebelled. The history of the Huns ended almost as fast as it had risen. But their legend lived on. In the centuries that followed, Attila was demonized. He became synonymous with destruction, the perfect model of the enemy, the ideal figure to represent the threat of the unknown, of the foreign, of the non-Roman. During World War I, the British even called the Germans Huns, evoking the image of a brutal invader. That stereotype survived more than 1,000 years. Even today, in books, movies, and games, Attila is portrayed as an absolute villain, a soulless destroyer, a symbol of chaos. When we look at the evidence, we find something else. The Huns weren't a mindless horde. They had culture, organization, leadership, had goldsmiths, political leaders, diplomatic relations, used symbols of power, held rituals, and sat on thrones. They traded absorbed customs from those they encountered. They adapted. Their lifestyle wasn't less valid for lacking temples or marble buildings. It was different. And it was that difference that made them such a formidable enemy. It was also that difference that made their enemies dehumanize them, because difference is scary. When something scares you, it's easier to turn it into the villain. Of course, Attila was a conqueror. He led violent campaigns. Thousands died under his command. But so did Julius Caesar, Alexander the Great, and Roman emperors. The issue isn't what he did, it's how his story was told afterwards. For centuries, the victors wrote the history. And when the Romans could no longer defeat Attila with weapons, they defeated him with words, stories, propaganda. Today we have the opportunity to see beyond the myth. The history of the Huns isn't just a story of war, it's a story of adaptation, of leadership, of political impact. It's the story of a people who challenged the greatest empire of their time, and, for a moment, nearly broke it. It's time to stop repeating. Attila wasn't the monster they told us about. He was a man of his time, with a clear vision, real power, and political intelligence. His legacy is more complicated, more fascinating, and more human. And that's exactly why his story deserves to be told again. Without filters, without bias, without fear of the other, only with the truth. And if you enjoyed discovering this other side of history, don't leave without doing 3 things. First, hit the like button. It helps a lot to spread this kind of content to more people who, like you, want to understand history beyond the stereotypes. Second, subscribe to the channel if you haven't already. We don't just repeat what the textbooks say. We question everything. And third, tell me in the comments, do you think Attila was truly a barbarian, or was he one of the most misunderstood leaders in history? I read everything you write. See you in the next video. And remember, history doesn't repeat itself, but sometimes it rhymes.